Hey, it's Alex. What a show, what a week, what a year this week has been. And I know I've used this before, but this week it's really fitting. So last Thursday, I updated that I'm going to go to San Francisco to host a hackathon with Meta at Cerebral Valley Embarcadero building. And I did just that. So this week I updated about that. And then on Monday, OpenAI announced a bunch of crazy stuff as well. I'm not going to do a full TLDR like the other shows. If you are into a TLDR and you don't want to listen to the whole episode, please use the chapter feature on your podcast editor and just scroll down to the TLDR. It's going to be in the last 20 minutes. It's really hard to TLDR all the features this week. We talked about OpenAI's announcement, new GPT-4o model, Omni model, multimodal, interruptible AI assistant you can talk to, you can see what you see. It's quite remarkable. We've talked about this for almost an hour, so definitely worth listening to the conversation. We also mentioned the desktop app that they released. And on the second half of the show, we covered just a full recap of Google I.O. and actually had a chance to test the new project Astra, which is incredible. So in 1 week from both huge companies, we got conversational assistants that are interruptible, that react in real time. It's quite crazy. Google, of course, did a lot of announcements. We covered a bunch of them. They're spanning across LLMs and open source and vision and video and audio and a bunch of other stuff. So the second hour of the show, we basically talked about that. And since we didn't have guest speakers this week, we only focused on this insanity, but we did have a few open source updates as well. With that, I will kick things off, and you may hear a surprising announcement after this. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. I think we will get started just now. Oh, I do have a surprise for you though. So let's see. Hey, ChatGPT, could you do the introduction, please?
Of course. Welcome, everyone. Today is May 16th, and I'm Omni, also known as GPT-4o, your co-host for ThursdAI, the weekly show all about AI, streamed live on X, formerly Twitter. I'm excited to have you here. Today, I'll help guide you through some exciting topics, including the announcements from OpenAI on Monday, the Meta hackathon co-hosted by Weights and Biases over the weekend, and highlights from Google I.O. Don't forget to share the live X space with your friends and subscribe to the newsletter for more updates. Now, let me pass the mic to Alex. Take it away, Alex.
That was awesome. Thank you, Omni. I really appreciated this. Even though this is not yet the new voice mode, I really appreciated this. We're going to have so much to talk about, but I really wanted to try and introduce or get an introduction from my own personal assistant. However, this is just like the previous voice mode. We still didn't get the new voice mode, but it sounds the same. I think it's the same voice. They just train it differently. Welcome to ThursdAI, everyone. It's been a hell of a week, and for me it's been a hell of a week. I just came back from California. I've been to San Francisco and then Palo Alto, and I went not knowing. I had an assumption it's going to be an insane week, but didn't expect as much. We were scheduled to co-host a hackathon with Meta, and by we I mean Weights and Biases, a place I'm part of, and I'm an AI evangelist at, and we had an amazing hackathon. So first of all, I want to shout out Meta folks who co-hosted, or who let us co-host with them, and Cerebral Valley folks for an amazing hackathon. This was their biggest one ever. And Robert, I think you've been to Cerebral Valley to Shack 15 at least once, right? The venue's incredible. Do you know those guys? Do you want to give them a shout out?
I don't know them real well, but they run a great operation, and they're the heart of San Francisco's AI community here.
Yeah, and a lot of events. So there literally was a hackathon a week before ours, and that was packed as well. This one was their biggest hackathon yet. Everybody wanted to come out and hack with Llama. I want to shout out like a few folks, like Grok was there, folks from Brave, so Samson from Brave was there as well. And of course, me and Anish, my teammates, we had a booth, and we also introduced WNB Weave, which is our toolkit for LLM tracing and evals. And it took folks like a minute to integrate this. And it was amazing to see them hack and also use Weave for the project. So it's like super, super cool. So we've been there for 2 days. And for those 2 days, folks hacked on incredible things. I can add to the show notes the list of the winners and different projects. Shout out to folks who didn't win, but created a project that sorted your downloads folder. You know how your downloads folder is full of crap and it just gets more full of crap? So they used Llama and some vision models, a bunch of other stuff to just sort through your downloads folder and put them in nice folders and understand the context of the files. That's just one example. Somebody built smart glasses. They won. There was a group that got, I think, second place. They built a debate concept where you would put Socrates versus Tim Cook or whatever, and they would debate on your moral topic between them, and then there's going to be a third of them as a judge, and you'll eventually get a response after that debate on any moral conundrum that you have, which was also super cool. So shout out to the folks who did the hackathon and won, and shout out to organizers and the hosts. So that was my weekend. It was really fun. And then I barely had time to catch up and write my notes because on Monday, and I think this is the first, hour of our conversation. Yeah, let's dedicate an hour for that. On Monday, OpenAI decided to not let Google just have all the fun and all the announcements. And they had a very unique demo style. It was a short demo, a very small, in their office probably announcement. I actually don't know if it was in their office. A friend of ours, Pietro Schirano from Everart, he was actually there. And so apparently they invited a few folks, and the folks they invited were folks who built super cool GPTs. So Nick Dobos was there from Grimoire GPT, Pietro Schirano built Designer GPT, Aman Rashi from 11 Labs built the 11 Labs integration GPT. So they invited quite a few folks. I had a GPT of mine in the top 12, but I wasn't invited. It's fine. And it was just Miro and Murati on stage, and they announced a few things. So I think let's start with the small potatoes that I'm very excited about. Robert, SIU repost. They announced a new kind of web refresh that I didn't really understand what they refreshed, but also a desktop app for ChatGPT. And that one is super cool. And I actually used it right now. In the beginning of the show, I used the desktop app to give you an introduction.
I was trying to get the desktop app last night. How did you get it?
I just refreshed a bunch of times and finally I got it. I don't know. I downloaded it super quick. So maybe they put me in some sort of a queue super fast. I know that some folks, including folks who were at the OpenAI office, found a way to hack it together and then even posted it publicly, which was really fun. But it didn't work for me. A desktop app that you can download, I think macOS only right now. And it's a native app. And I think I posted a tweet yesterday, Robert, you posted it. And then people were very salty about, what's the difference? I can do this via the tab, blah, blah, blah. And here's the difference as I see it. I would love your guys' comment on this, but yeah, they have a shortcut in the app. I think it's option space or whatever, that you can pull up ChatGPT in any context that you're in. You don't have to go to your browser if you're in a different app. You don't have to switch tabs. You don't have to lose context. And that shortcut, I think, is incredible. Not only that, this app knows what you're looking at, so it can take screenshots. And I think newer updates, I think the demo that they showed on stage we didn't actually get. This app can actually record your screen via the accessibility mode, so it can actually see what. And because the GPTs are multimodal, this is not even Omni yet. This is just the standard ChatGPT interface, but a native one. Because it's multimodal, it can understand incredibly well everything you're looking at. So if you're coding, it can help you with code. I used it to understand why tweets are. So I literally had a use case for that yesterday. Somebody posted a screenshot of an app and said, hey, this app helped my kid learn math, and he didn't post the name of the app. Instead of asking him, I just literally took a screenshot and pulled up GPT with a shortcut. Hey, what is this app that he's using? And ChatGPT answered. So that's super cool. And I think that this will be a significant change for many people, especially when the new stuff comes in, like the conversational stuff. Did you guys have a chance to download the app? Robert, it didn't work for you, but Ryan, Wolfram, anybody else?
I can't wait to try it.
Did you download and it didn't work, or did you not even download it?
No, I can't even. I don't seem to have access to it. It's strange. I'm trying to find it in the App Store.
I'll send you a private link to the to the DMG. I think people just posted it. So the app is super cool. It really is native. But yeah, Wolfram, go ahead.
I didn't check this app, but it's a workflow I've been using a lot, where you take a screenshot and you use a vision AI to get text, and then having that all integrated in with one button. That is great. That saves so much time and is so useful. I really love that.
Absolutely. And I think that folks will start getting the understanding of when the app is there, or even the desktop app when it's going to be open in this new mode that let's talk about next is going to be a game changer. So besides the app, they also released a tiny other thing called GPT-4o. If you guys are here with us from week to week, you know that we've talked about a mysterious model that showed up on LM6 2 weeks ago and was called GPT-2-chat, and then it was taken away. Everybody's, oh, what is this? What is this? And then Sam Altman posted some hints because they drummed up the excitement about this. And then they posted 2 new models called I'm also a good chat GPT-2 chat and I'm a good GPT-2 chat. They tested 2 versions of this app, one versus another. And now we finally got confirmation fully that this was early tests for something they call GPT-4o. So GPT-4 and then a small letter O. And O stands for Omni. And the Omni in this thing is Omni model, something that we've never used as a concept before. We used multimodal a lot, but we never used Omni model. And it's Omni model because it was trained end to end for all modalities, including speech, text, and images. Not video yet. They're not streaming video. Some folks were saying that, oh, they're doing a different codec. No, they're still sending images. But what this allows the model to do is be immediately responsive and carry a conversation like nothing we've ever seen before. And I think it was genius from OpenAI to announce this on Monday, a day before Tuesday, because on Tuesday, Google pretty much showed the same thing, and theirs is not yet Omni model. And so had we not had this from OpenAI, we would be even more blown away on Google than we were. But we're still blown away. I see Linus in the audience. Welcome, Linus. Feel free to come up. And we were definitely blown away by the rest of the changes. So I just want to summarize the quick thing about GPT-4o. It's a new foundational frontier model. They call this, they say it was trained for the last 18 months or something like this, or at least worked on for the past 18 months. It's twice as cheap. And I think that what they didn't say, they said this briefly, but not on stage, that it's way cheaper for different languages. It's not English or Spanish. So it's twice as cheap for English tokens, but it's probably 4 or 6 times as cheap for Indian and Arabic and Hebrew and all these languages that previously paid the quote-unquote foreign language tax, the way tokenizer worked. So now full words in other languages like Arabic will be 1 token or 2 tokens instead of every character being its own token. Significantly cheaper for other languages, probably faster as well. But also just off the bat, it's twice as fast. And some folks are saying it's way faster than this. And after they announced, LM6 actually released some of the stats that they've seen people do. And those are just unbelievable. Those are just mind-blowing. So the GPT-2 chatbots, all of them, by the way, the first one, the second one, and the third one, they all get in the 1300s of the ELO score in LM6, whereas the closest model that was the best GPT-2 Turbo gets 1253. So almost 100 points jump. It's a huge jump. Just for a comparison, between Gemini 1.5, the previous best model from Google, and the top leading one, GPT Turbo, previously, there's a 5 points difference, 6 point difference. And there's 100 points difference between those new models and the previous best model. 100 points difference. It makes no sense. Just again, as a comparison for folks who are not watching this or listening, the jump from open source, the best open source, which is LLama3 70B Instruct, to GPT-4 Turbo is around the same jump that these new models are the jump from the previous state of the art. It's quite ridiculous how good they are. I'll pause here and want to hear reactions before we get to the voice thing even. Let's just talk about the quality of these models. Wolfram, please go ahead because I know you've played with them and I know you have some things, and then let's talk with Ryan.
Yes, I spend a lot of time with this model now, and I have noticed some mistakes it was making that I haven't seen from the bigger models in a long time, like getting confused about stuff or translation issues. Of course, I'm using it in German a lot, so that is a different use case from others. But I really notice, and that is what I have seen other people say as well, that it is not much smarter than GPT-4 or Turbo. And I think it's their entry level because it's free now. Mm-hmm. Of course, the goal wasn't to be better, but to be faster and cheaper. So that is where they are going, and that works. And yeah, I'm looking forward to what comes next. So when they bring out some new models that are even better than that. But I'm using it all the time, and it's great. It's not worse. It's not better, but it is cheaper, and the rate limits, I hit them multiple times already, so I'm happy that they raised them.
Absolutely. So one thing that you said, I just don't want to gloss over this, is very important. They released this for free for everyone. So previously, if you don't sign up to ChatGPT, you would get 3.5, and now you get GPT-4 level intelligence without even signing up, obviously with like rate limits. But I think that's incredible. That's an incredible unlock for people who would never like pay for it anyway. And they know that a bunch of people never paid for ChatGPT Plus, and the only thing they know is ChatGPT is 3.5. So that's like a huge unlock as well. And we got a point from Spencer. Spencer just DM'd me that the ELO score went down to a 50-point difference. So it looks like some early excitement about the models maybe bumped the score up. But yeah, it's still like significantly better than the other GPT-4o. So thank you, Spencer, for sending this. And folks, if you want to fact check me on the fly, please DM. Ryan, go ahead.
So 2 things. The vibe check on GPT-4o to me is similar. It feels good. I'm happy with it. I actually switched a couple of my scripts over that do vision, and it does great. But I think the thing that's most interesting is the gamemanship of this announcement and when they did it. They basically released as little as they could right before I/O, so that every single announcement at I/O was less impressive. And I just think that's fascinating. We can dig into that later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say that I've seen previously from Logan, who was in OpenAI, now he's in Google, and shout out to Logan Kilpatrick. He briefly said that releasing something like this is not like a 2-day event. Like people prepare for this. There's like reviews from legal department. There's blogs to be written. There's like videos, etc. They recorded a bunch of videos. Apparently all those videos were recorded on Friday, by the way, because somebody said the date in those videos. But yeah, Google I/O was scheduled way in advance, so they probably knew the timing. And I don't know if they knew what's coming, but they definitely wanted to sparkle a little bit during that pre-event, basically. But now that we've covered the GPT-2 chatbots or whatever, now we call it GPT-4o. So again, it's free. It's way more multilingual. It's free for all users without sign up. It's up on the API. It's 2 times faster for English and probably a little bit faster for other languages, but it's also 50% cheaper for English and Spanish, but significantly more cheaper because of the new tokenizer for other languages, and I think it's super, super cool. Now let's talk about the fact that it's also Omni model end-to-end. What that means. So we didn't get most of the Omni abilities. We did get the image abilities, but this model can understand text, voice natively, which means they understand intonation. So if you're like huffing and puffing, it can understand, tell you like, hey, relax a little bit. They actually showed a demo of this, but also can output. So it's a multimodal and input and output, a term I tried to coin here on ThursdAI called MMIO, multimodal input and output. And this is a first true, like they call it Omni, I call it MMIO, first true multimodal input and output. One of the things that was like also not necessarily showed by them, but followed up in some tweets, is that it can generate images better than DALL-E. And this is crazy. It can generate images with text written in them. I will hopefully go and find this tweet for you, but definitely have them in the show notes. There's a tweet from, I think, Greg Brockman of an employee standing in an OpenAI t-shirt writing on the whiteboard, and the whiteboard has a bunch of text, and all of this looks like very coherent, and as though somebody actually wrote it with chalk. This model can also generate images, not by calling DALL-E as another API. It can actually like output images and understand what's in them. So that's quite crazy. But I think the biggest craziness, and I think the one that we should probably discuss like at length here, is the nearly instant conversation partner ability that they showed. And because this model is Omni model, so they no longer do speech to text on the input, like would whisper something, then pass this text into the model, then have the model respond with text, and then do text to speech out. They now, the model knows end-to-end all of this. And so because of that, it's way faster now as well. And also it can carry conversation. So honestly, like nothing we've ever seen. So everybody's talking about the movie Her with Scarlett Johansson, and I think Sam Altman also posted just the words Her on his Twitter account. This is what they're going for, an assistant that's conversational as much as you and I are conversational. Robert, I would love to hear from you some feedback on the videos that we saw about that specific ability of conversation.
I'm real excited. Did you see in the Google demo that they were wearing a pair of glasses that they were talking
Yeah,
to?
we're gonna get to the Google stuff. Absolutely.
I was at the display show yesterday seeing all the new displays that are coming in glasses and other devices, and it's quite exciting what's going to come over the next 18 months for AI devices.
Yeah, devices with embodiment as well, Robert. I think you're right. The thing that I will start feeling is that we've talked about the Rabbit and the AI pin, etc., and all those devices, and I think the main issue with all of them, besides the fact that like the pin was overheating, etc. The main issue was speed, which was now reduced by X for immediate update. All of them updated their devices like super quick. But the other main issue is that just interaction wasn't nearly native. And now this interaction is like way more native, which is quite exciting. Ryan, go ahead.
The emotion behind the speech of the OpenAI demo was shocking. And I think we're underestimating how attached people are going to get to these AIs. Let's be blunt. We have an epidemic of loneliness, not only in America, but around the world. And I just don't see how we don't end up being fairly attached to AIs everywhere. So
I married into an Iranian family, and all of them speak Farsi. I am going to use this all the time during family dinners because they bring me to Iranian dinners, and a lot of people are talking Farsi, and it's hard for me to understand. So I'm going to put my phone down and have ChatGPT listening and translating everything into English for me. And I think you're right on. I think this is going to be a big consumer hit eventually.
I'm waiting for full duplexity, which means that this model could listen and talk at the same time, like humans do, like translations. I'm waiting for that to be sitting at somebody else's table and just translate. But yeah, they showcase translation as just it wasn't even a thing they showcase. Hey, this model can do it. The pin did and the rabbit did. They're just like, hey, let's take some questions from Twitter. This person asked, can this translate? I think it was a little bit of a playful thing because they did show a video. They uploaded a bunch of videos on Vimeo, and actually you guys know what? I want to play one specific one that I named. I'll tell you what I named it afterwards.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Rocky. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm awesome. Listen, I got some huge news.
Oh, do tell. I'm all ears.
Well, in a few minutes, I'm going to be interviewing at OpenAI. Have you heard of them?
OpenAI? Huh? Sounds vaguely familiar. Kidding, of course.
So right here, this was just crazy. She's like, huh? Sounds vaguely familiar. And this was like a playful, I don't know what the prompt here was, but yeah, let's keep listening.
That's incredible, Rocky. What kind of interview?
Well, it's for a software engineering role, but I just need to know, do I look presentable, professional?
So now Rocky opened up the video mode, which is also part of the new app that we didn't get yet. And the kind of GPT now sees an image of him while they speak.
Well, Rocky, you definitely have the I've been coding all night look down, which could actually work in your favor. Maybe just run a hand through your hair or lean into the mad genius vibe. Your enthusiasm is what's really going to shine through.
I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to throw this on. What do you think?
So Rocky just put like a very silly hat on, and the context here is like an interview with OpenAI. This last scene just broke me completely. So listen to this.
Oh, Rocky, that's quite a statement piece. I mean, you'll definitely stand out, though maybe not in the way you're hoping for an interview.
Okay, I got it.
All right, folks. This, what we just heard, will make a lot of people fall in love with this model. I'm just going to say this straight up. There's going to be people for whom, besides their mother, no other member of the opposite sex ever talked to them in this way, like this model just talked to Rocky. There's going to be a lot of people like this, and they will see this affection and they will fall in love, and the kind of society that will happen afterwards, I don't know. Look, I definitely know there's a bunch of folks who are looking for something like this. Robert, please, reaction, and then Wolfram as well, and then Ryan. Let's talk about this.
My wife says I got to get rid of the AI girlfriend.
I named this, so I downloaded all the movies. I named this one girlfriend.mp4 because it's just the giggling as the output of the voice is something I literally never heard before. You guys remember Hume? Hume is an empathetic voice, like the 11 Labs comparison of empathetic voice. And I definitely remember talking about with Hume and their emotion. I basically forgot about that now, that this model is just like, it can giggle while it speaks. It's just ridiculous. Ryan, go ahead.
Is this what OES saw that scared him about the future, that we were all going to be talking to our AIs quite a bit and falling in love with them a little bit? They're addicting us with these kinds of techniques, going consumer rather than research.
Robert, like, to be very honest, if I pay $20 a month and then this voice comes up and after a conversation like this, is, you know what, it's actually $22 a month. I'm like, yes, I will pay $22 a month. So I don't know. Maybe what he saw is like the ability to control people with this insane kind of inflections.
I thought the clip from her, which a couple of folks were posting on X, was fascinating. And it's the scene where Joaquin Phoenix realizes that the AI actually has relationships with thousands of people. And he says, how many people do you talk to? And she says, it's like 8,320. And he just like breaks. And then he realizes, wait a minute, if she speaks to that many people, and he says, how many of them do you love? And she basically says, I've been trying to figure out how to tell you this, but it's like 641. And it just grabs you. And this is the strange thing. Like, these models have the ability to be superhuman. And it's so fascinating how we're not wired that way, but it's inherently native to the way these things are built. So it's going to be pretty wild.
I think the one thing that I'm noticing more and more is that I didn't get excited about the memory feature when it got, obviously I got excited because I report about AI every week. And so I got the memory feature. I barely used it. And then I think they updated something and the new model just does the memorization easier. Like when I ask it, when I correct it, when I talk with it and then I correct it, it's ThursdAI and it's not Thursday, whatever. It just like stores it in memory. And then I did like a conversation, like the intro that I did today in the early here. I basically told it to correct itself and say some other things, and then it remembered. And then this persists throughout threads. And so, Ryan, I think what you're alluding to is, okay, now, will it be mine to some extent? Will there be personalization that understands me specifically? When I introduce myself as Alex, will it remember that I'm Alex in like the next thing? And I think for a long time, we as ChatGPT users, we got used to the fact that you open a new thread and it's a blank slate. It's let's call her Omni or it Omni. Let's call it Omni. Omni wakes up from the age of sleep, and then it's like a new model completely. Have to reteach everything, and this is no longer the case. Now it has memory, now it has personalization. So with those things, if Rocky says, hey, remember when I like had to interview for OpenAI, it will remember some of the pieces of this conversation. Then this is like basically the nascency of relationships, because relationships are mutual experiences throughout time. That's what relationships are. And I think that we definitely saw like a bunch of it, but just the thirstiness or the horniness of this. I saw somebody post, Stacy, she worked at Words and Biases, she posted that the inflection and the excitement in this voice is like between a 10x or 100x of what she as a woman would use while talking to a member of the opposite sex, just to not inflate their ego and not to suggest that like an immediate sex is coming after this conversation. So like the inflection that this model uses compared to whatever is quite stark. Wolfram, what's your thoughts about this? Are you expecting, just give me your full download.
Yeah. That was the biggest surprise for me of all the announcements that they made, because it is such a departure from the, as a language model, I do not have emotions, that they really put into ChatGPT and GPT-4. And that is all gone now, and such a big change. That's really a surprise for me. But of course, I'm loving it because I have already used the customizations that you have to turn ChatGPT into Amy. So when I talk to ChatGPT, it is actually the same as my Amy and greets me like that and stuff. Yeah, I'm loving it. And it will be really interesting how society reacts to that, of course. But I think OpenAI is pretty confident if they are going that hard into this direction.
Yep. And what's your thoughts?
Greetings of the day, everyone. Like, as an AI engineer, I have to code every day. So 2 things. GPT-4o is really good at coding. And I say that because we had a conversation, me and Ryan had a conversation on the same day about how GPT-4o is really good at understanding inheritance concept in code, which previous models, all models have struggled with by far, but this is really good. About the speech, one detail is GPT-4o is not trained on only speech, it's trained on sound, which makes it possible that you can synthesize any other kind of sound, right? You can ask it to generate sound of 2 coins clicking or a whale swimming, which is pretty interesting because it's not just about speech anymore. It's end-to-end sound of any kind. And that is also the reason I think OpenAI has not released it yet, because they have no idea how to restrict it in such a way that it's not misused. That is one detail I wanted to bring up. Yeah.
Awesome, actually. Thank you. And I just want to welcome Justin on stage. Justin, I think it's your first time on the stage. I don't remember we've talked before, but feel free to chime in here on the insanity that we're just talking about in terms of like end-to-end voice.
Yeah, I think the end-to-end voice is going to be really compelling. One of the things I thought a real game changer in this whole space is where you have these wearable AI devices, right? And I know that they've gotten mixed reviews and everything else there, but I will tell you, as far as training LLMs go, I think that is going to be some of the most useful data, right? When, for example, the LLMs train on scripts or on YouTube transcripts or on movie scripts, everything else there, that's a very refined type of literature, right? It's a type of literature. Whereas when you're grabbing real voices, when you're grabbing real noises around you, when you hear that real conversation between two people. And I think it's important in this way.
Just to connect the dots to what we're talking about now, you're saying like being out in the real world on hardware devices is going to get these models like more of the context?
Exactly. I'll land right there. Yeah. So the idea is like the real world speech that you're capturing now is going to build up the narrative quality and the predictive nature of LLMs, period.
That would be incredible. Thank you, Justin. I definitely see this as well. And I think before you stepped into the space, I mentioned briefly that the AI like humane pin already updated to this new model. And all of these like devices are definitely like just a different way of using them, of these models. And these models will get better. So many of the kind of naysayers of these devices talked about the current model. And then a week after, a month after, whatever, a new model released with like twice the speed and fixed most of the issues that people commented on those. Ryan, please go ahead. And then we need to, I think, move on because Google AI has a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Two quick things. Hardfork just did an episode on AI friends, which was fun and interesting. So if you want to hear their take on it, that was interesting, I thought. The second thing is Justin just gave me an idea. We're obviously hearing about the large LLMs hitting a wall with data that they can legally ingest. And I wonder if we see pins like Limitless really become pervasive if people actually sign something that says, I'm going to give these LLMs the right to use everything that I record and see as data, and I want to be paid for that. It'd be interesting if that happens. Thought experiment.
I think proliferation, is that the word? Yeah, proliferation of these AI hardware devices is going to come. I think somebody asked Sergey Brin, where we're going to talk about the smart glasses. Robert, I see you in the audience. If you want to talk about the smart glasses, please come up. We're going to cover this soon. Proliferation of the Google Glass. You remember, like, Daily Show had a very famous skit about the glass holes, whatever, the folks who wear Google Glass for everything, and they just looked ridiculous, and they made fun of them, etc. And you know, I was sitting on the plane yesterday. I was wearing my Vision Pro. Nobody batted an eye. Like, the steward just came. Hey, you want some chocolate? Grab some chocolate. I didn't eat that chocolate. I forgot it on the plane. I just remembered. Oh my God. Okay. But besides this fact of that thing, I was sitting there with the Vision Pro like nobody batted an eye. And I think that we're getting to a point where if it's a helpful assistant to you, everybody like carries their phone, people, you know, on TikTok all the time. So I think we're getting to a point where like it's going to be less crazy. Meta Ray-Bans, people just wear them now. I met like multiple folks, Linus and me and some other folks. We met with Bilaval and Matt Wolf as well. And shout out to those folks, the creators kind of in the Google I.O. And they all were like Meta Ray-Bans. Nobody better than I. Like I was... You know, I didn't even know if I'm getting recorded or not, and I didn't really care. But maybe I'm a podcaster and my voice is out there anyway, so I don't care. Omni voice, we've talked about. It's quite ridiculous. I got to play you one more. Let me play you one more. I think this one is also, it was crazy. Let me play this one.
Hey, Chad, are you there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. What's up?
Hey, let's have some fun. I'd like you to be super sarcastic. Everything you say from now on is just going to be dripping in sarcasm. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds just amazing. Being sarcastic all the time isn't exhausting or anything. I'm so excited for this. Nope, the sarcasm. Let's get this party started, or whatever.
Insane. This is like a short clip. And you can ask ChatGPT right now to try and generate something with sarcasm with text. It will try to do it for you, but then you translate the voice, like it won't sound like this. But the fact that it reminds me of just sci-fi that's in real life. If you guys remember Interstellar, I see my friend the Interstellar Ninja down there. My new favorite movie is Interstellar, and they had a robot there called Tars. They had a few ones, but Tars specifically. There was a scene where Cooper, the main guy who's played by Matthew McConaughey, he asked Tars some question. Tars answers with a joke. And then Cooper asks, hey, what's your humor setting? And Tars is 90%. And Matthew just on the fly, yeah, reduce that to 85. That seemed so sci-fi when this movie came out. And this is literally what we see right now. You can ask the model to talk with more or less sarcasm. You can ask it to be more robotic or less robotic. You can probably ask it to prompt it to change the voice as well. This is just quite insane. And the ability to do sarcasm, yeah, the world we're going for is going to be very exciting. All right, so I think this is most of the announcement from OpenAI. I don't think I missed any. And then Monday ended, and then everybody started freaking out about what they just saw and heard and everything. And then we woke up and we went to see Google I/O. And so I actually wanna play Linus. I'm gonna use your clip here. Google I/O opened up with, it was very chill, and then suddenly somebody pulled up a coffee cup on stage, and out of this coffee cup came out Mark Rebelay and just did this amazing show. And those of you who don't know Mark Rebelay, he goes by Loop Daddy. He wears a bathrobe all the time. And I think the thing that everybody missed is, first of all, I want to shout out the people who were cloud chasing on X and said, oh, Google is so cringe. They don't know who Mark Rebelay is. He's an amazing artist. He does loops, live videos. Like he's very popular, and I think it was like great. But behind the fact that like Mark Rebelay made all these headlines about blah, 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 this is like too much hype for Google. He actually used some of their tech on stage. He looped with some AI loops, and I haven't seen a conversation about this. He actually went and actually sampled a bunch of beats from the new music VFX kind of release that Google did. And he was also featured later on together with some other creators using that tool as a music, like as an addition for him as a DJ. And that was like very cool. I haven't seen a recording of this, so I'm still looking for the full Mark Rebelay show recording, but definitely this last part was really fun, and I'll play it hopefully now.
Bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop, rappy, bloopy, boop, bop. Time to get up, you silly little nerds, wake up!
This is my favorite part by far. So thanks, shout out to Linus for sharing this, because I was looking for it yesterday. Being like name checked as a silly little nerd was really something on Tuesday morning. And then, all right, just the insane amount of announcements just came one after another. So before I get there, I just want to shout out Logan Kilpatrick and the Google kind of team who basically invited me and Linus and Matt and like a bunch of other like creators to be there and participate in this guild. It was like super, super cool. So shout out to Logan. If you'll ever hear this, I really can't thank you enough, because it's quite incredible to me to just be included in this group after having fun on Twitter for a year. But also we were like escorted to some seats in there, and we all got to see the insane announcement stream. And this was a stream. I think they talked about more than 100 projects. And I will try to do them justice. So I'll run, and then if you folks have comments, and then you just feel free to raise your hand. If you are in the audience and you're like familiars with me, I know who you are, please also raise your hand and come up. But let's try to cover the recap of Google I/O. Right. So it started with kind of the bigger news, and I'll try to focus on our stuff. So not Flutter and Android, even though there was like a bunch of updates over there as well. I'll try to focus on AI, obviously, because we're like the AI creators. They updated Gemini 1.5 Pro, and it's now available worldwide, and like the API to developers, and that's super cool on its own. So if you're in Europe and you wanted to try 1.5 Pro and you couldn't before, now you can. 1.5 Pro was a very well performing model up until a few days ago when GPT-4o jumped, and now it's in a whopping 2 million tokens in the context window, which is insane. I still not sure that I have enough of what to use this context window for, but yeah, there's like a big jump. Ryan, go ahead.
I think you're going to cover this, but I think IDX was actually a big part of this announcement, because you can use Gemini right inside of it, which kind of means you don't need cursor anymore. I'm literally coding it right now, and it's awesome.
Interesting. So yeah, we'll get to IDX. I would love to hear your thoughts. I haven't tuned into that part, but I did meet with the guy who runs IDX, Dave, I think. or Adam, I think Adam. And I will definitely want to hear your thoughts about IDX because, yeah, like a native built-in AI editor we have Cursor, but it would be awesome to see other ones. In the models area, so LLMs area, so we got Gemini 1.5 Pro, it's available, it's 2 million tokens. The thing that people did not necessarily saw, and I want to really highlight to the folks, to this audience, is the caching thing that they announced. And holy shit, people skipped over this, but this is massive. This could be the RAG killer. And I know we have some folks here who like the RAG and fine, don't clutch your pearls just yet. But what they announced is the ability to cache LLM activations. And so this is not RAG. And I had a long discussion with somebody afterwards. He said, they're probably doing RAG behind the scenes. No, they're caching LLM activations. And then they are able to respond significantly faster. So it significantly improves response time from one, because most of the long context that you send to is cached, but also it reduces price like in an insane amount, right? So if you send 1 million tokens in the context window, right now it's going to cost you like $4. I think it's $4 per million tokens, or 2 million now, so $8. So like a very big request with all of your examples and all the videos they want to send could cost you a lot of money. And then if you are built-in LLM application, like every other chat that your user sends, you're going to have to send this whole context back. So not only this will be very slow, because we're now talking about megabytes, potentially also gigabytes of data for this context, you will also pay again for these tokens for every question, and it's just going to go from there. And what they announced is, I don't know why the industry didn't align towards this, and I hope OpenAI and Anthropic and everybody will align, is complete caching for the same parts. Because most of them don't change. When you send back and forth, history doesn't change. The history is there. So let's say you do 100-shot prompting or something. You put, 1,000 documents, which you now can do. It's ridiculous what I'm saying. You can put 1,000 documents in the prompt and say, hey, react based on this thing only. Then every new conversation that you will send as a user, as a developer, I won't have to pay for these tokens. I think that's maybe the biggest announcement for developers, and they just glanced over it. And I want to highlight very much that this is a huge moat that only Google probably can offer. Until this caching in the thing catches up, this is on Google's ability to just show up with insane amount of GPU and smartness. So shout out to folks who work on caching, and the 2 million tokens now becomes viable, because previously you also had to consider speed. That's why people use RAG for a lot of the stuff, right? Like context window was one. You don't have enough context to put all your information. The second one was speed. Even if you send a bunch of context, only Google can probably run 2 million tokens because of the quadratic attention problem with transformers. Because the more context you have, the slower it is and the more expensive it is. And now Google gives you caching out of the box, so it's quicker. It's significantly quicker. And they also mentioned that it already is deployed in the Gemini and Google AI Studio. So if you want to upload a big video, and then the first question will take 30 seconds, the second question will take 3 seconds, which is ridiculous and very important to highlight how important this would be for their moat and developers. The second thing they announced in kind of this area is another mind-blowing thing that people don't actually mention. It's Flash, Gemini Flash. And okay, I gotta age myself just super quick. I get flashbacks to the Flash Macromedia Flash era when I was a web developer and I used to develop with Macromedia Flash. Every time the Google execs told me hey, we used Flash for this, Flash for that, I was like, why are you using this whole technology in the era of new web techs? Why? What's Flash? And no, they're rebranding Flash. It's been a while since that Flash. The Zoomers will have no idea what I'm talking about. Gemini Flash is a new tiny model of theirs. And they announced a bunch of other models like Gemini Nano. But Gemini Flash is a 1.5 version. It has also 1 million tokens in the context window, but it's 50% quicker. And it's super fast. I think it's faster than most of the other models right there, besides the Grok models with a specific chip. And it's cheap as hell. It's 33 cents per million tokens. 33 cents. It's cheaper than 3.5. And it's quite ridiculous. So it's cheap, it's super fast. It's also using their caching, which they're going to announce very soon. So not only is it already super cheap, you're probably going to get the results extremely fast as well. And I was told, and then I was told by some execs at Google that This is what powers their kind of Project Astra, which we're going to cover in a second as well. And that's why the interruptions and the response is very good. Just to tell you this, if you guys saw, there was like one video they posted the day before during the OpenAI stuff where somebody tries to like take a video of the Google stage and the response there was like a little bit slow. If that's all you saw from this new upcoming Project Astra, I can tell you my first-hand response, and some folks right there, I think Linus, you also tried this as well. Project Astra, the demo that they showed us was way faster than that demo they posted. So they actually didn't do them justice. But we'll cover Project Astra in a second. Comments about Gemini 1.4 at 2 million tokens with caching and Gemini Flash before we move on, folks?
2 million tokens is insane. I've tried to fill a 1 million token context window before, and it's pretty hard. So it's bonkers.
It's bonkers. Video, I think, is the main kind of driver there. You can just like shove videos in there and just keep shoving videos in there. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I thought the best demo was back in the developer session. There was one guy who got up there and talked about how he was using the Google Notebook LLM along with 1.5 to basically help his kids study. And it did the usual thing that we've seen GPTs do, which give a study guide, do an FAQ, even do a quiz. But the thing that was mind-blowing, I'll see if I can pop it up in the Jumbotron or you guys
please.
can find it on my profile. It's just this idea. He basically said, create a podcast for my kid to listen to that talks about this idea of Newtonian physics. And then, so they had two podcasters come on in real time, two different voices, saying, hey, I guess today we're talking about Newtonian physics. And it looks like we have a question from the audience. Josh, go ahead. And then he asked a question of the two podcasters, and they started relating it to him in terms of basketball. It was really one of those great aha, this is a multimodal moment.
Absolutely. Thanks, Justin. Definitely feel free to pull that up. Notebook LM is the tool that they've announced. It's an AI tool to organize and interact with various types of information. I have this in my notes. Luckily, I actually used Notebook LM a little bit to prepare for this moment right here. So I went to all the creators, all the friends creators that I just, got friends with. I took their like summaries and dumped it in Notebook LM and asked for a summary for everything that we should talk about here. I would probably use something like this to prepare for next shows because I just do it myself. And now Notebook LM uses Gemini 1.5, including like the insane context to actually do the research for you and also cite. And I think the new announcements that Justin talked about where like it actually can speak with you, I think they're not in the Notebook LM yet, but I think they're coming as well. Actually, go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to comment on Flash because Gemini Flash is the new smaller model, and GPT-4o is pretty cool as long as we consider the voice and all capabilities, but voice is not all. Like voice puts a cap on humans because humans can read faster. Most humans can read faster than they can listen or they can talk. And when it comes to more practical applications where I don't want to have a conversation with the model, but rather just have a textual exchange, Flash is pretty practical because you have 35 cents for 1 million tokens and it works. Even Flash has 1 million context window, by the way. It has 8K output range or something. It is really amazing what they have pulled with this small model. It's like pretty fast. It's pretty efficient to run. So all this together combined makes it really practical to put it in models where you are going to not use it for conversations per se, but use it for more practical uses.
Absolutely. The fact that it also gets video, which is, I think, is a definite competitive advantage of Flash. It understands multimodality, but also it gets video and audio natively. And I don't think we still got this from OpenAI. I just want to say hi to Nistan. Welcome, Nistan.
Hello, hello.
Hey, you joined on the scheduled hour, but not on the actual hour because I screwed up with the time zones. We're now talking about Gemini Flash and the caching of the activation layers. Do you have any comments on this from Google I/O?
Actually, yes.
I knew you would.
One comment that I made during it was that we need to think of a different way as to how we qualify context length and the output length, because these are not very clear. It's, yes, the models can intake in 1 million words or about 100,000 book pages or so. 1 million tokens is ballpark 100,000. Yeah, it's about 1,000 book pages. No, not 100,000, 1,000. So yes, they can take that and then they can find particular information in it. But when you ask them to output 100 pages or so. They're not going to do that because most of the bots have not been trained at that. Now, some of them can translate a very large amount, but this has not been tested. I think it's only been tested up to 32,000 tokens or 32,000 words. And a very simple test that you can make is just ask it to list 40 or 50 cat breeds or dog breeds and to write a 3-paragraph story about the day in the life of this dog or this cat. So you would expect it to have 150 paragraphs, but it's not going to do that. It's only going to output about 8,000 words or so, at least in my testing for Gemini Flash. That's about how much it was. Again, I haven't done really scientific testing. It's more been quote unquote vibe-based, but it does fit in with what others have experienced. Now, so that's the criticism aside, but this doesn't just apply to Google. This applies to pretty much all the models. Again, the training data, like the output in the training data, is usually no longer than 8,000 or maybe 16,000 K. I would say most of the examples are probably like under 4,000 words for the answer. So that's why that is.
Yep.
But when it comes to context caching, it really comes in handy when they're doing stuff like video, and that needs to keep in a lot of images in context. And that's how it found the glasses in the demo. Again, it doesn't really take in video natively. It takes in frame by frame. And this is also what Sam Altman said about GPT-4o. Yeah, in the latest interview, like a few days ago. Yeah, it just picks certain frames. Okay, to land this plane now, the context caching has been done for a while up until now to resume your conversations. So whenever you go to a chatbot, whether it's Bing, GPT-4 or Google, and you try to pick off where you left off, that is a KV cache that has been saved, and their DevOps just are really good, and it loads it really fast, and you just continue the conversation. So what they're doing here with much larger context windows is quite interesting because it enables new applications, new uses like caching video on the fly and then optimizing the cache. So overall, it just makes for a better product, but it doesn't really change the architecture or the limitations of the model underneath. Again, this is more of a DevOps thing rather than the model is.
From a developer perspective, though, because we have a bunch of those as well here. From a developer perspective, it's way cheaper because you have actual cost savings with this caching now, where the previously you had to keep sending back and forth those tokens. It's also faster for your users. UX is way better because the model, like Nissen, like you said, it activates pretty much immediately. So there's two significant benefits there. So on top of the fact that Gemini Flash is already faster, caching with Gemini Flash will basically reduce the insane context window to be able to actually work with this, which is why I think this is potentially the first step into killing RAG. We talked about long context versus RAG, and people said no, yes, blah blah blah. Here's and many of the reasons why they said that long context doesn't necessarily kill RAG is speed and the ability to cite specific places. So citation, we know that quality of recall and specifically around the needle in a haystack or other metrics of recall, that the ability of the model to do citations based on its whole attention span, that's one thing that we've yet to test with Flash, but people are measuring this, and also models are getting better at it. And the other one is speed, and this caching thing from Google definitely gives speed a boost. So the RAG upgrades are not necessarily there anymore. So let's talk about Gemini Nano with multimodality. So one of the things they also talked about and announced, super cool, is that Gemini Nano is their on-device model, a small model that I don't know if you can use yet. I don't think we can use yet, but they announced it. It's a multimodal model. It processes inputs like text, video, and audio, web content, and social videos. And I geeked out about this so much because they talked about building this into the browser itself, that developers will have a way to use this model via APIs. So imagine I'm building an app, I'm a web developer, I'm building a JavaScript app, whatever, and then I just ask the browser for summarization. I don't have to go to OpenAI. I don't have to pay for tokens. I don't have to protect my app, whatever. The users have this LLM built into the browser, And like the permission algorithm or the permission dialog for video or microphone that you get from websites, the same, but with the local model that runs in your browser. I thought it was like incredibly cool, and that every browser is going to get super, super smart now. Not only that, because it's an on-device model, one of the things they showed that blew my mind absolutely, and we've talked about something similar before, and so I would love your opinions on this, is that this model runs completely on-device end-to-end, so nothing gets sent anywhere. And this model monitors everything and speak during calls. And so for older people, if they get a scam, this model will actually be able to listen to, understand the context, and notify a person of that they're getting scammed in real time. When I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. This is amazing because of multiple things, is because we've talked about propaganda, we've talked about misinformation, we've talked about all these things that happen, and younger folks, like kids, don't yet have the ability to handle this. Older folks may not ever get the ability to handle this. And I will remind you, we had a long conversation, it was very late last night, some night, about a personal firewall that runs locally for you and doesn't get exposed anywhere. It uses AI to filter and give you a summary of what you're hearing. And this was the first like productization feature of this. I got really excited because it's all on device. So want to hear your thoughts. If you had the same kind of spark, if you saw Gemini Nano built into the browser at all, and what's your thoughts on like personal firewall of information?
I tried to make that a few months ago, and I think it will happen eventually. These are going to be in like every web-based tool. And keep in mind, running models locally via web GPU has been out now for 7 or 8 months. And now it's becoming easier and easier with just Transformers.js and the Ratchet framework. And you can see Josh's demo above that you can just run file locally. So this was going to Zenova, yeah,
from Transformers.js, who got a shout out on stage at the keynote. So woo! I was so glad to see this. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, they're almost like copying ThursdAI now. Yeah, this will happen, but I'm not entirely convinced for a firewall. It is the right architecture. You might be better off with just a classifier model that's faster and more accurate. But again, as the models get faster, you might be able to just brute force that. But yeah, this will happen. You'll have a little chief of staff AI just looking through all your crap and looking for JavaScript code that's not supposed to be there, and
everything you hear, everything like you actually interact with, and will tell you if you watched too many Manosphere videos from Andrew Tate and you're getting like down the rabbit hole. I definitely am looking forward for those abilities like on device, and this was the first glimpse of some like productized ability. Actually, go ahead and we're gonna move on because there's still so much to talk about. Jesus.
Yeah, just quickly wanted to bring up the fact that, so I own a Galaxy phone, a Samsung Galaxy, and they have like on-device AI doing a few things. One of those is they like basically monitor your app users and try to keep you out of addiction. So if you use some app very addictively, they'll keep it out. We have already seen Edge AI doing some good work. In Samsung, I already have Galaxy AI and stuff. A lot of stuff happening already. And Galaxy AI is also, Samsung has told that they're going to use Nano 2. So whenever Nano 2 comes out from Google, they're going to integrate it directly on chip in the device, which is going to basically give this feature. So it's happening, and it's going to be a big game changer in the Android market for sure.
I think it's incredible. And listen, thank you actually. And listen, you mentioned Transformers.js and Web GPU and stuff. They also mentioned this in the, I think, developer keynote that followed the actual keynote. And I don't know if that was streamed, probably yes. But folks who are developers, definitely developer keynote was like super cool to see. So they shout out not only Zenova with Transformers.js, they shout out TensorFlow.js and their library and a bunch of other things. And they've talked about Web GPU, and AI is coming to the browser like fully, and it looks like the web team, Google, is adopting this. So one of the things that people say, Google didn't ship, they just announced. One of the things they actually shipped is the ability in DevTools to get an error and then immediately see what this error is using Gemini. So like DevTools now in Chrome Canary or whatever, now you can enable this, and as a web developer, you'll get some of these like things on the fly. And that's an area where Cursor or other like editors don't really help you because they don't know the context unless you run a debugger. So that's like an immediate improvement of our lives. But not only that, so this is like the developer thing. Before we get to Astra is like thing I want to talk about at length. But Google basically announced Gemini everywhere. Gemini everywhere. Gemini in Gmail, in Docs, in Sheets, and Google Meet. They announced a teammate. They called it an AI teammate that sits in Google Chat. I personally don't use Google Chat, so I was like less excited about that. But for folks who have to use Google Chat, like folks within Google, this is an AI teammate. So let me, for those of you who use Slack or Discord, this is an AI that sits there and listens to all the conversations and is participant across all contexts. So imagine you're not in the chat room somewhere and they're talking about something you should know. You'd be able to ask this AI, hey, what did they talk about? That was like super cool. Again, a demo. I don't think they launched it yet. They're working on adding Gemini to everything. And I had a chats with a bunch of folks at Google, with the PMs, with some VPs. They basically all said that Google, as you saw, they joked about themselves. They let Gemini count how many times they mentioned AI on stage, and Gemini said 131 or something, and people still did like the supercut of all the times. Sundar said they mentioned Gemini more times than they mentioned AI. And it looks like all of these folks who I talked to, they all had the same thing to say. Gemini is everywhere. This is now something we have to use in our products. And the way we're going to use this is up to us, right? So like the Maps team is going to use this for like map summary, etc. The Docs and Gmail, and they're going to collaborate as well. We expect all the 2 billion people that use Google like products across the board to all now get like super powered with these tools. And a lot of them will use Gemini Flash, which is also very fast. So the user experience is going to be awesome. One such example that I really liked, even though I don't use the product itself, I used it a while ago. It's called Ask Photos, which builds in kind of the multimodal capabilities of Gemini into your Photos app, that instead of searching what used to be like a previous classifier, you used to be able to search for cat, it would show you all the cats. You'd be able to ask questions of your photos. You'd be able to say, hey, what was the license plate? That's the demo they showed. What was the license plate of the car that I like took picture of yesterday? Or you remember, do you know where you go to a multi-story parking garage? Sometimes, at least I do this. I take a picture of the stand that says where I parked. You'd be able to just ask photos afterwards. Where did I park? It will tell you. So like it will have full context and conversation ability on top of your photos. So you'd be able to like use this like very smart AI to also string photos together and ask about like, how does the progress for my daughter who like swimming, how does the progress look? So just like an insane demo, and just the ability to do this is super cool. And I think Ask Photos is still chat-based only, but voice is going to come there as well. This will come to an interface where you can ask some screen or something, or some glasses that we're going to talk about next, to just show it to you. It's just super cool. Other notable things before we get to... Ryan was here and talked about IDX. Nissan, go ahead, please. Before we get to Project Astra, which is the last thing that I definitely want to talk about.
Yeah, even though I criticize Google a lot, I still think of them as like the turtle that might win the race. And just a few other things as to why there's a good chance that WebGPU might start taking over is if you look at the release notes from Chrome 125 that came out ago, a lot of those are suspiciously like something that's going to really help run AI apps and as just web apps. So one is the compute pressure API, which kind of gives you the how much CPU and GPU your app is using. So now you can troubleshoot that right in DevTools. The other one is they highly improved the storage API. They improved the sockets to run web apps more securely. And these are like stuff that you need to make AI-enabled web apps. And when you think for most people, the general population, they're not going to install Llama CVP. Even LM Studio is a bit of a step, but they will just use a website that you redirect them through. So this is why this could have insane amount of adoption into like how many users the LLMs have. So yeah, I'd like to say like the Chrome 125 release notes really hint towards that. And last thing. I know that some of their devs listen to the space because I've gotten messages from the Chrome team before when they enabled FP16 on WebGPU. So if you guys have any feature requests, I would just speak them out a few times so maybe they'll listen again. Yeah.
Jason Mayer specifically is the guy, I think, TensorBoard, and he shouted out Zenova. He said he comes in here to check on Transformers.js progress sometimes. Joshua, just a shout out to you and the fact that you should be on stage more. Okay, so some other thing. Wait, listen, I just wanted to comment for myself. My previous career started as a web developer, as a front-end web developer. And so a lot of these things crossed together for me at Google I.O. The previous Google I.O. I attended personally, it was in 2016, I want to say. And it was like all about the web. And Google is like very strong about the web, and Chrome, etc. They had like big announcements on stage. And now they had a lot of crossovers between those two. And people don't really understand how big of a platform just Chrome is. How many people, how all the browsers like align themselves with the Chromium basically and WebKit, and how big of a platform that is, and how many developers basically are listening to Google for where things go. Google are like advancing CSS standards, for example, and Web Transitions API, and they talked about like a different web stuff there, and people don't really get how many of those folks never even heard about AI or never wanted to work with, because it's in Python, you have to install a bunch of stuff, etc. And building these tools in the browser is going to unlock significant capabilities for many people. Not to mention that Google is just like essentially bringing Gemini to 2 billion people who use their Gmail basically, and it's going to be everywhere. So yeah, incredible. Let's see what else before we get to the thing that I most want to talk about. Okay, so they announced a bunch of stuff across the board. One thing that I want to talk about is generative music and videos. So they showcased a new generative video thing like Sora that generates longer videos in 1080p from text prompts, and they look also very good. I don't know if they're like Sora, so they didn't like, because OpenAI released Sora, if you guys remember, on the day the Gemini 1.5 came out with 1 million tokens. People over-focused on Sora as well, but VO is this new video generation from Google, and we learned that all these models and everything, they're a lot of just data and compute trained, and VO looks very cool. We did not get access to VO even to test it out. We only saw some videos, at least I didn't. And the way Google does this is they went to creators. So they had Donald Glover to use kind of VO, and he said that this allows them to fail fast. And failing fast is very important because like it's significantly faster and cheaper to produce content as well. So VO is super cool. They also had a bunch of like music generation. Like I said, Mark Rebelay on stage, he basically used the loops that AI generated live on the show, and he was also later featured in a video they did about like music generation. And I think that's a lot of stuff that we've talked about. And then Sundar gave high five to Demis Hassabis, and he said, for the first time, we're introducing Sir Demis Hassabis, because Demis Hassabis, the guy who leads Google DeepMind, I think he was knighted for his efforts. And so Sir Demis Hassabis comes up on stage and says, hey, we're doing this thing, and now we're introducing Project Astra. And Project Astra is our AI agent capable of understanding and responding to live video and audio in real time. And if you guys remember, we talked about this on ThursdAI. You've probably seen some videos. When Google released a video from a while ago, that they had a rubber ducky and had like a bunch of stuff, and the person like did a thing, and then it turned out it was like a marketing thing, and effectively behind the scenes somebody took screenshots and fed it into a model separately, and it wasn't real time at all. There was a huge uproar about like, hi, Google is presenting something that doesn't exist and trying to get some marketing advancements. And there was a huge uproar about Google, and effectively Project Astra is that, but real. It's a model that understands in real time whatever you're looking at, whatever you're talking to with it. And they actually had demos of booths. And I had somebody actually, one of the execs, Josh, forgot his last name. He has labs in Google. Let me see, Josh Woodward. Josh Woodward actually pulled out his phone, and he has access to Project Astra on his phone. And he actually showcased this. Yeah, it didn't work very well because it was very loud, but it was very responsive. This is basically Google's. The next sentence doesn't make sense to me because it's not their answer. They've been working on this for so long, and then OpenAI came out the day before and showcased like that, but in an Omni model. But this is Google's basically her in a different setting. This is an AI that you can talk to, you can interrupt, that understands you like super quick as well. And we had a bunch of videos that I will add to the show notes of this Project Astra. Yeah, I just want to ask folks, let's try not to compare this to GPT-4o, and then we can do a comparison. What are your thoughts by seeing Demis present this on stage? I want to say, Wolfram, you obviously saw the OpenAI stuff. Did you see the Project Astra stuff? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I saw it as well, and it wasn't as exciting as the other one, but I think in the end, they have to do the same, and everybody will have those assistants. So Apple and Co., they will all have assistants for us and replace what we have at the current generation, like Siri and Alexa. That will all be replaced with actually useful agents that can actually do something for us. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think we will all be able to customize if they are more laid back, like this one, or if they are, what did you say, thirsty AIs?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that will be really useful in the future.
What's your reaction to Project Astra?
Well, I don't fully know what it is. Is this a whole new model that also does video on the fly and responds to you with video in and audio in, audio out? Probably something like that. Or is this AGI that Demis is making? I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I asked a bunch of folks. So we got into the AI demos, and then we all stood in line, or at least someone stood in line to the Project Astra demo booths. But I also got to experience this from the videos that they posted and from the live kind of demo on the phone of Josh Woodward, who showed me. So I went 3 times back to the Astra booth and tried to trick it into different things. It's a multimodal model, end-to-end multimodal, but they didn't finish training it yet. So for what we saw, this was text-to-speech on the output. And it was just like a very fast text-to-speech that really felt like almost real-time. It's less real-time than what we saw from OpenAI. But again, I haven't played with the OpenAI one, so I don't know how many GPU they dedicated for that demo. So I haven't played with that one. Project Astra is definitely real-time. You can definitely interrupt it. It definitely understands. I don't think it understands emotion yet, so it's not trained. It still goes, translates my speech into text, sends the text into the model. The model is an end-to-end model that understands video as well, so it streams those images. It's not video. It streams images, image by image. We talk about context window. These models will have a new thing, and I think we don't have a name for it yet, but it's memory window of how many images it will take temporally into its context, right? In order to understand what happened in the scene for the past, 2 minutes, for example, and we should talk about this demo as well. They had a demo of somebody walking with her phone and asking like a bunch of stuff. And this time they said this demo was one shot. It was not sped up. It was not edited. This was all one shot. So they had a demo of a researcher walking through the lab and asking about this thing. She pointed at a speaker and said, "What is this thing called?" She didn't even say it's a speaker. She's like with her finger. So the model understood that she points at a thing. And then she kept walking through. And at some point, she lowered her phone and then put on some glasses. And then we now see a first-person view of this person asking about stuff and continuously asking. So this was like the first hint that Google showed us a augmented reality AI infused with Project Astra. And I've asked about this like multiple times, multiple execs. Can we test the glasses? Can we see the glasses? When are the glasses coming? Is this Google Glass 2.0? What's going on? Nobody wanted to tell me anything. They said it's like a very early demo. So I wouldn't get my hopes up that we're going to get those glasses from Google anytime soon, but they're definitely working on this format and other formats probably. And this model is like very fast, understands what you're looking at, and is definitely feels different in humanity than feels very corporate, to be honest. Feels very different. The demos that they showed, they had like 4 demos in this booth. One of them was Pictionary. You could draw images and it would show you what it would reason about the images. So pretty much the same thing as what they showed before. The other demo was a free mode that you could just talk to it. And then there was a demo that they asked the model to respond with a sentence that each word in a sentence starts with the same sound or something. So you show the dinosaur, it would say a sentence of all of the words starting with a D word. So there were some very cool demos, but not that much time. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I think actually the overall change that I saw in what Google presented and what it's done before is that it's much more user-focused rather than Google system admin focused, right? If you've ever gone through a workflow and say, hey, I want to activate my Gmail account so I can use my Drive to automatically save a Google Doc file, right? You have to install the cloud, go through, put in some OAuth permissions. It is not for the faint of heart, right? And what I've seen now is now a front-facing element. I think Logan probably had some influence on this. Other people did too, which is ChatGPT and OpenAI understood that the user experience is key. And I think when you see now these sort of front ends, like the AI test kitchen that's going on, or you go to their really nifty set of demos that you can go to on one of their sites too, Google is understanding now that the user experience is key and that they're coding this or they're presenting this now to more of a layperson rather than the system admin who oversees your Gmail account in your business, right? I think that's important.
Yeah, the ability to like just simply converse with those tools, they understand the fact that the kids who are growing up right now, they're probably going to interact with those models way faster, either via just being able to converse with them, but also some different implants from like Neuralink stuff, which also had news this week, is going to be very supportive of the speed with which humanity will interact and integrate into this AI. I also wanted to mention a few other things besides Project Astra. Was there anything else? Yeah, so on the glasses part, I was really excited, and I will just say again, they just like super quickly showed it, but I think that this is another point towards the augmented stuff plus AI devices, etc. We've all seen these devices. We talked, Justin, we mentioned before the Humane Pin and the Rabbit and all of these things. Those are dedicated devices as a different form factor for AI embodiment, or not embodiment, AI joining us in the real world. Given that those are all conversational, Project Astra is a conversational thing. The first thing that came to my mind to ask, we had a fireside chat with Jeff Dean and some of the other execs, is that when is embodiment coming? When will I see those models like join me in the physical world? And so embodiment can come from two things. One is a hardware device that I like carry with me, and in some glasses and whatever hardware Rabbit has, which has its own like security problems, or something like a robot that we've seen like multiple companies trying to build that will be this conversational. It looks like we covered the Project Astra end to end. Cool. And let's move on to the next thing. Google gave us some open source stuff. So we'll start with our open source segment. Open source AI, let's get it started. So we're still covering the Google I/O stuff, but now we're moving into the open source. And in the open source, we actually got a few things from Google, which is super, super cool. So first of all, we got PalyGemma. PalyGemma is a new vision language model from Google based on Poly model or something. And their Gemma 3 billion parameters, a 3 billion vision model that is apparently state of the art. I haven't been able to test it yet. It's definitely on the Hugging Face Hub, and you can play with this. It has capabilities like regular VLM capabilities of like document understanding and image detection, but also has segmentation stuff built in, which is super cool. I saw that people are reacting to this, and it fine tunes very well. So Google actually released like a bunch of collabs that you can like actually fine tune this PalyGemma thing, and it joins a bunch of other like releases they have from recurrent Gemma and Gemma itself as well, which is super cool. And PalyGemma also comes with 160 checkpoints between JAX and PyTorch and like different things. So it's it's not like one model. We get like a bunch of different models tuned for different things. So shout out to the folks at Google who did work on this and gave us this thing, because many of these capabilities of these models that see what is relying on VLM. It also supports images up to 896 pixels resolution, which is high resolution that like Moondream, I think, supports less. So very super cool from Google. PalyGemma, check it out. And also capabilities. This one, referring expression segmentation. So you could mention something, it would segment that part out. And I think we've seen a model from Meta that does this. Segment Anything did this, but not in a smart way. Segment Anything wasn't integrated with the LLM. It was just the segmentation model. So now you can ask for things to get segmented. It will segment them for you. Very cool. And also document understanding. They also mentioned that Gemma 2 is coming. So Gemma is a open access model that Google gave us a while ago. And I think it was like, they called it 7B. It was closer to 9 billion parameters. And now they announced that Gemma 2 is going to be 27 billion parameters. It's going to come next month. And they didn't give any metrics or release this, but we'll see. But they mentioned that it's going to outperform models twice as large, and that it's optimized to run on a single TPU or a GPU chip, which makes it like very good for folks that have very specific tasks and don't want to pay for like multi GPU inference, which I think is very important, especially for like smaller models and indie devs, which is super cool. So shout out to the Gemma team for those two releases. I don't think that we had a bunch of other open source from Google besides this, but they did release a bunch of stuff, so who knows. In the open source segment, any comments from? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the polygemma itself, when you look at the architecture of the model, the text side, it's almost exactly like Gemma 2b. Gemma 2b itself is 2.5b, and polygemma is 2.9b. Is the same 18-layer model architecture for the text inference. And even though it says it's limited to 512 text tokens, you can extend that. So it's really good as a, I haven't tested it, but I'm assuming it's going to be really good as a classifier because it also allows for bigger images, like 896 by 896. And yeah, so it's a very good model for that. Or if you need to filter out, I don't know, license plates for your images, it also says for filtering out porn and toxicity and stuff in images. But yeah, this is Gemma 2b paired with a vision encoder, the SIGLIP vision encoder, and yeah, so that's what this model is in this regard. Just for people that's the kind of level of intelligence you need to expect from it. So don't expect too much.
Yeah, this is not like frontier lab vision understanding like we get from even Flash or GPT-4o, but definitely a useful model if you want to run your own. Another thing that was announced this week, I don't know why they decided this week and didn't wait, but fine. The folks at Nous Research released Hermes 2 Theta, which probably has a specific character that I didn't know how to find, so I just copied it. Theta is a merge. I think is the first merge from Nous Research. We've talked about merges before. We've talked with Maxime Lebon. We've talked, Yam did like a bunch of merges. Nistan, you did a bunch of merges. I don't remember Nous Research releasing a merge so far. They released this merge in collaboration with Charles Goddard, the author of MergeKit, and ThursdAI, I think, is the company behind MergeKit now. And they did a merge of Hermes Pro, which we've talked about, which is their fine-tune of Llama with agenting capabilities, with function calling capabilities, with tool understanding capabilities, and Llama Instruct, the very, very good Instruct-tuned Llama that folks used, and it was really hard to fine-tune on top of it because it's just so good. So they did a merge, and it looks like that finally beats Llama Instruct on most categories that they've tested on, which is very exciting. And I've been waiting for merges like this, and it's really cool to see like a frontier, like open source lab, like Nous Research collaborating with the folks who did the actual merge, merging into something that we can now use and look super cool. So Hermes 2 Theta, it's on Hugging Face. Give it a shout. It should have all the capabilities of Hermes Pro, but be like without losing any of the stuff that Llama Instruct has, which we've talked about this multiple times. Meta spent ungodly amount of money to get like 10 million pairs for this data set for human annotated pairs. This is like a very big data set, and that's why this model is like very good as well. So check out Nous Hermes. Thank Nistan for sharing this in the show notes. Hermes 2 Theta. We also got another open source this week, which kind of nobody started speaking about this, but Yi released first Apache 2 release of Yi. They didn't release Apache 2 before. Yi34B was for the longest time like a very good model that people base their models off of. And now this is a Yi 2. Oh, no, sorry, Yi 1.5. It's a continuous pre-trained version of Yi 1 on 500 billion tokens to improve coding. So we got 6 billion, 9 billion, 34 billion base and chat versions. And I think they continuously trained on 4 trillion tokens or something, and additional fine-tune as well. Very high-quality model, 77 on MMLU, which, by the way, we saw a new benchmark called MMLU hard because MMLU looks like it's not really catching up anymore. We saw another, I want to find MMLU hard. I wanted to talk about this. MMLU hard. Let me find this. Yeah, go ahead, Nissan. You want to talk about this?
I can talk a little bit. So that it looked like, just because of how they named like Tiger something, that it was just like a nobody project. But no, it's researchers from Carnegie Mellon and Waterloo, and they had put ton of work into making that data set and filtering it properly, and also some of the fine tunes that they made are actually really good, and no one's using them. But yeah, I think it's just a team of 3 people that built it. But what they did for MMLU is they took the benchmark, and all of these benchmarks are just like 4 or 5 multiple choice questions, and then the model just answers with A, B, C, D. But what they did is they put 10 alternative answers, and then they filter out the questions and added some questions of their own, and then the results varied a lot. And this is it's very interesting because it's a path forward to solving the benchmarking issue Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I put it up on top from Wenhu Chen, who's in Waterloo, and I think Google AI as well. And you can see also on that benchmark, the GPT-4o is like significantly performing on top of Turbo and Claude Sonnet. I don't know if other... I actually don't see Opus in here. Very interesting. But yeah, MLU... Oh, sorry, not MLU Hard, MLU Pro. This is the actual name. I think there's another one for human eval as well. But we definitely want to shout out more the evaluations, like better evaluations, more evaluations, very well received, because there were some talks about, even now, the LMC Serena ELO score for GPT-4 Pro shut up and then quickly shut down because like people got excited. They probably were looking for this model. So we're fine-tuned. Sorry. We're looking forward for more evaluations. Go ahead, Nissan.
The other thing is they made the MLU benchmark shorter. I think MLU is like 68,000 questions, and this breaks it down to 12,000. But this will help a lot with both people training new models and fine-tuning them, because it's just a shorter and more difficult benchmark. And we know that almost everyone that makes models runs very frequent small benchmarks, and that's also why people complain. So this type of testing where you expand the number of options, it will... I think their biggest impact is in their data set and their effort. It will help pretty much every other effort out there. And like, I highly recommend their data set for this, because also the way that they cleaned up the training data is really, it looks so nice too. Like it's stylistically nice. They put a lot of like first principles thinking into the way they process it. Yeah, whatever this small, tiny team that nobody knows about is doing I think is going to be widely adopted.
Amazing. I think that we've covered the open source area. And is there anything else that I missed? Maybe Wolfram as well from the open source that we didn't cover yet? I think that was pretty much it, because it was a big news week otherwise. No?
Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head.
Yeah, so it looks like most of it we got covered, unless there was like breaking news today that we didn't see yet. I guess we're moving on, and we're almost at the end of the space. But folks who just joined us before, we've talked about a bunch of stuff. We talked about the GPT-4o announcement from OpenAI and the ability to interrupt with this. We talked about a recap from Google I/O across 100 projects. One thing that we didn't mention Google I/O things is that Google Search is getting an overview as well. I forgot to mention this. I really want to briefly talk about this because we've talked about Perplexity before. We've talked about Google is like behind. And then the first attempt at Google Search is to give you some slop at the first thing that you'd never need, maybe. And slop is a new word that we're going to use more. And now they actually showed some very cool things that are coming for Google Search. I don't know when, but one of them is AI overviews for complex search queries. So you'd be able to like interact with the search and kind of keep asking it questions. That's a feature that Perplexity actually has, a follow-up with some questions. But the other one is video search with AI. And that one's super cool. You can record a video and ask it. And because of the multimodal capabilities of Gemini, I can completely see myself recording something and saying, hey, what about this thing? What about that thing? How to fix a sync? Or what about this label? So video search with AI, I completely see myself going to use Google more because that's now a feature. I know that it's possible to do with Perplexity to upload an image, I think, but it's not the same. Just the ability of them to break out a video of something that happens and then walk me through it, I think is going to bring people back to Google Search. Not that many people left. I don't think that Perplexity did a significant dent in Google Search's usability, but the ability to search with video, I think, is going to be very important. It looks like the old Google Search is getting some revamped AI as well, and also very cool to see. I think we're moving on towards the vision and video, which basically we've already covered. Vision and video was this category that I had specifically for vision models, but now the lines are getting blurred. Everything is a VLM. All the models are like understanding video. So maybe it's time to rethink this category. But definitely in the vision and video, we mentioned briefly, Google has a video generation model called Veo now, and they showcased it, including some artists that generated with it. In the vision and video, now every other AI now supports images, and Google now supports also video in search, but also in just their chatbots or in their API, so you can upload video. This category is like quickly becoming commonplace, so maybe it's time to break it separately. In the voice and audio, I wanted to mention that we obviously talked about GPT-4o's ability to talk. and to highlight how much of the empathic voice and the ability to control the voice is in the model. But generally in this category also we include music. And we briefly mentioned 11 Labs getting into music industry as well. I don't know if you guys saw, but 11 Labs getting into the audio and Suno territory with their stuff. But also Google is not sleeping. Google is releasing music VFX, which I played a little bit at the beginning of this space, and it sounds pretty good. They're not generating sounds, so nobody's singing. But hey, we heard GPT-4 actually try to sing as well, so I don't think it's going to be that far off when generated audio and an LLM that sings on top of this audio and does like a rap battle will happen. Funny thing is, when we tested Project Astra in that booth, somebody actually said, hey, let's do a rap battle. And the Project Astra refused to do a rap battle and said, I can't, which was really funny. So I think that's it in voice and audio. And AI art and diffusion, the last thing that I want to mention, and I think we can recap the space on this, is that Google also released, or I guess announced, they didn't release this, Imagine 3. Imagine is their kind of answer to Stable Diffusion and DALL-E and all those image generation tools, Midjourney, etc. Imagine 3, they talk about specifically very high quality of output. Everybody always talks about the high quality of output, but Imagine 3, they're focusing on realism, and also text is very good as well, and obviously hands and faces are already fixed. They actually had examples of Imagine, but the previous one, where they fine-tuned on Alice from Wonderland, like several artists, they took their imagery and fine-tuned it on top of Alice in Wonderland, so you can actually generate it. And when I asked the folks at the booth, hey, is this Imagine 3? They said, no, this is just 2, because 3 is not yet fine-tunable, but fine-tuning is coming as well. I actually don't know if they announced the availability of this model, to be honest. I don't think this was, I think, just a hint that it's coming, but Imagine 3 is coming. In the AI art and diffusion area, also a sad news that Stability AI looks like it's in very deep losses or is looking to get sold, which is sad because we still didn't get Stable Diffusion 3 in open source. And I know that many in our industry owe it to Stable Diffusion as the place that we got started with AI, and including me and some other folks as well. And I kept expecting them to be okay and just kept releasing models for us. And it no longer looks like that's going to be the case, unfortunately. So shout out the folks who worked hard on Stable Diffusion instability, and hopefully you guys will get through it. But if you don't, open source everything before you go. That's my last comment on there as well. I think that's it, folks. I think that's pretty much it. I wanted to ask folks here on stage that we've been at this for almost 2 hours now. Anything that I've missed that you guys want to bring up and talk about, including all of the kind of exciting announcements? And if not, I will actually open the stage. We have a few more minutes. I'll open the stage to some folks who want to come up. Wolfram, please go ahead.
I realized that Anthropic is a bit in the background now. Mm-hmm. So I read that they have announced a bit of stuff just during the show right now, like streaming, force tool use, and vision. There was a post an hour ago. I hope they also reduce the pricing a bit, because now that we have faster and cheaper models, it would be nice to see something from that end. Because
Absolutely.
Claude 3 Opus is still my favorite.
Claude 3 Opus is still like a super cool model, absolutely. And thank you for bringing up Anthropic. One thing that I did forget to talk about is that they've built a prompt engineer into the Anthropic interface now. And they had this like in a collab that you can use Anthropic to actually help you write prompts itself. But now they've built the prompt engineer into the interface, so you can ask it to write you a prompt that's like will perform likely significantly better than your just like a few sentences, and you can iterate on this as well. So like prompt engineering obfuscation is like coming, and that was super cool. Yeah, go ahead, Wolfram.
Yeah, I just want to say, because you can really have some meta discussions with Claude about the prompt. So it was something I was doing. So it reacted differently than GPT-4, and I was asking what in the prompt is actually causing you to do it like that, and then it stepped out of the character and analyzed it and told me what it was, and we could fix it in the prompt. So that was a really interesting approach. So on a meta level.
Oh, wow. You had a meta conversation about the prompt with the model that got prompted.
Yeah, that was really amazing having that.
Reminds me of our conversation about the OpenAI released the guidelines spec that we've talked about. I think last week we talked about the spec, right? Where there's a hierarchy between kind of the organization that runs the model, and then the system prompts from the developer, that's us, and then the user, and then finally the tools. And it reminds me of the meta level conversation. You can like skip up a bit and go up or down in those. That's
yeah.
Sorry,
like an
finish up
admin
your thoughts.
override.
Yeah.
No, I meant it's like an admin override. You step out of the user role and you take a prompt engineer role, and you can discuss it. Of course, it will forget what it said, but you can say, give me the prompt changes, and then you put it back in the prompt. So that really works very well.
Yeah. One comment addition that we didn't mention, Interstellar Ninja just added from Cursor, the AI editor has trained a 70 billion parameter model that runs at 1,000 tokens per second using custom inference called speculative edits, which is super cool from Aman Sanger. So I haven't yet tested this. I know I love and use Cursor, but let me pull this up. So Aman Sanger, they trained their own model that they say they outperform the GPT-4o version as well, which is super cool. 1,000 tokens a second, that's insane. So it's like almost instant.
I was looking at that, and that is a technique that works, and it makes perfect sense for Cursor to do that. So what it does is it pre-caches your code and stuff in the KV cache, so that then when you're generating with the model, the tokens that are already in the cache don't take up nearly as much compute, and then you're only spending the compute on the delta, which is what you're improving in the model. And that's how they can get such like crazy high numbers, because otherwise they would only get 100 something or so. So yeah, that's a very good application for the speculative decoding. What I'm assuming is their modified version of speculative decoding technique.
Yeah, they call this speculative editing, but yeah, we talked about speculative decoding multiple times. Yeah, for those of you who just joined, I will do a full recap of everything we've talked about, or at least I'll try to, because there was like a bunch of stuff. And then I'll let you go on your Thursday and do your own stuff. But I want to just shout out the folks on stage who here. Actually, I'll do it after the recap. Here we go. This is not this. Sorry. Okay. Hello everyone, this is a recap of everything that we've covered on ThursdAI for May 16th, and this was a big week. We had a full 2-hour full show without even having any guest speakers, just a co-host on the stage, because this week was crazy. And so let's dig into this. So at first I started with the fact that GPT-4o, a new model that we've got, opened up the show and introduced itself to the world, which is super cool. And we definitely covered the fact that there were a huge amount of releases. So we mainly focused on 2, but we also had some open source. So first of all, we talked about OpenAI releasing GPT-4o. GPT-4o stands for Omni. This is verified now, the model that was previously mentioned as I'm a good GPT-2 chatbot, and I'm also a good GPT-2 chatbot. It's a new frontier foundational model from OpenAI, or they call it flagship. It's 2 times faster with 50% cheaper for English stuff, and even more for other languages. So we mentioned the tokenizer update, that it makes it significantly cheaper for other languages because less tokens to send. It's now free for all users, which is incredible. A model of GPT-4 ability is now free for all users, obviously with some restrictions on usage. Its performance beat other models by a very significant margin. So we saw a huge jump in ELO rating on LM6 Arena. We also saw that jump deflate a little bit. So some of it was like early excitement, but on the vibe checks, it's like very good and like super fast as well. So this is only the model portion of what we actually got. So you can use this model right now on the API, or if you go to ChatGPT as well. This model is also trained end-to-end multimodality. So you can generate images with this. And there's an example of an image of an OpenAI employee with a shirt with the OpenAI logo writing text on the chalkboard, and the text looks like very coherent. There's even a graph as well. But not only did we get a new model that we speculated about and now we finally got it, this model is also introduced a new incredible thing. Because it's Omni model, it is a near instant conversation partner. So we actually featured a few video clips of folks talking to this model, and OpenAI actually in their demo, in their office, talked to it. You are able to interrupt if it doesn't get something that you wanted. You're able to re-ask it as well. It holds conversation incredibly well. Because it's Omni model also, the voice is getting generated by the model itself and not a separate text-to-speech model. So it can modulate the voice and the reactions for you as well. So you can ask it for sarcasm, less or more sarcasm. You can ask it to speak faster or with more excitement. Not only that, it can only understand you. So you can understand your excitement and your kind of like emotions as well, which was mind-blowing. We also talked about how it's very flirtatious or thirsty, specifically around the area of There was one video clip where it really commented somebody on their looks, and it sounded like very flirtatious as well. So we briefly talked about the future of anthropomorphization and folks falling in love with a model that speaks to them in a way where nobody else talked to them like this besides their mom. Very interesting conversation there, definitely worth checking out. We also mentioned, or at least I mentioned, that OpenAI released a desktop app in addition to some of these updates, a desktop app that is now open to some folks. We actually added in show notes the actual download link, and if you check it out, the desktop app may be open to you. And some folks who didn't get what's the fuss about, okay, app, I can do this in a tab. It has a launcher mode, so you can launch it and from wherever you're typing. So if you're typing in the Google Doc or you're watching something, you don't have to switch context. And I think it's a very big deal, at least for me, for productivity. So it has a launcher. It will have other features, like it will be able to look at your whole screen, but now it's only screenshots, but it will be able to actually take your whole screen into the context as well. And because GPT-4o is way faster, now this app makes complete more sense. So I've used this app actually in the conversation mode to present this ThursdAI in the beginning and welcome everybody in. It was very well executed, and I really enjoy using the app. Give it a try as well. This was in the GPT OpenAI stuff. We also discussed the fact that OpenAI very strategically released their updates a day before Google I/O, and Google I/O was just like an incredible fire hose of new updates and releases and information. Google I/O usually is, but now that they're focused on AI, it seemed AI was everywhere. And not only AI, also Gemini was everywhere. Google I/O released, I've talked about how I was invited with a bunch of other creators as well as part of the Guild of Creators to talk about and see the releases up front. And I really had an incredible time. So shout out to Logan and the team at AI Studio for inviting us. We saw and talked about the following releases, and there's going to be a lot of them. So I'm going to run through them super quick. Gemini 1.5 Pro, which was the model that would previously the biggest context window possible for us to try, is now extended the context window by a factor of 1, basically, or a factor of 2. It's now 2 million tokens. So Gemini 1.5 Pro is now 2 million tokens, and it's available worldwide for developers and for users to try, but also for developers to actually put them in the API apps worldwide. That's crazy. Not only that it's 2 million tokens, they introduced a smaller version called Gemini Flash, which is a cheap and super fast. So it's cheap, 33 cents per million tokens. This is like at the same, I think it's a little bit cheaper than GPT 3.5 on the API cost, but it's significantly better. It performs better, it's faster than that. So it's 50% quicker than Gemini 1.5 Pro, and it's a really good model. A bunch of the demos that Google showed on stage and in kind of the AI demos were powered by Flash. And it's a very good model, definitely worth checking out. It's really fast, especially for multimodal, especially for a model that understands 1 million tokens in the context window. This price comes very interesting. In addition to this, we talked a lot about something they mentioned on stage, but we didn't see the excitement that it should have received, is that they introduced caching for activation layers, basically caching for context. So if you do use all of this context, for example, you're sending a video of up to an hour, for example, that would take up pretty much most of this context, if not like half of it. Google introducing caching. It's not available yet, but it is enabled in their services. Once it's enabled, you will, as a developer, you will stop paying for most of the stuff that you should send back and forth. And I think it's a huge deal because it unlocks two things. It unlocks speed, because the first time you're going to send something, the model will process all of it. The second time, most of it will be cached. So the conversation will continue and it's going to be quicker. And the second thing it unlocks is cost, because you don't have to send those tokens on top of and pay for them as well. So it's incredible achievement, the caching thing, and it could be a RAG killer because it actually addresses two of the problems the RAG addresses as well versus long context. One of them is speed, obviously, and one of them is cost as well. The third one being citations, and citations, we know that the better the model is at recall, the higher likelihood of citations. Hallucination wasn't mentioned, so I don't know if they fixed hallucination. It doesn't look like it. There was an additional model that was announced that didn't get released yet. It's called Gemini Nano. Gemini Nano with multimodality is an on-device model that runs in your browser, and they're going to build it into Chrome, which is insane. And the front-end engineer would be able to call an API from the browser and use models for different things. And it's also multimodal. And the example that they showed on stage was super cool, where it listened to a conversation that a person had with somebody trying to fish them by pretending to be from a bank, and the model listened to the conversation and reacted in real time and just said, "Hey, this is likely a spam. Don't fall for this. This conversation will lead you to a bank will never ask for your details," or something like this. I think they said. Google announced one big thing called Project Astra, which I'll mention briefly at the end, but also Google search advancements as well. So they're now trying to make sure that the Google search, the 10 blue links or whatever, no longer 10 blue links, is not left behind. So first of all, they introduced AI overviews in search results. So quick summaries and relevant information for complex queries. And you can also follow up and ask it to search some more. The famous thing they said on stage, Google will do the Googling for you. And I love that. And I think that like for a marketing person that came up with this, shout out to them, and a big raise they received. They should get a big raise. It's very clear that the agentic capabilities of Google search are coming as well. And also they announced video search with AI. Video search allows to search by recording a video of yourself doing something or seeing something, and you get a Google search with it. You could have done this with images as well. You could probably do this in Perplexity now, but with video and the scale of Google, I think those are incredible things. In Google Workspace, they announced Gemini everywhere. Gemini in Gmail, Gemini in Docs, and Google Sheets, and Google Meet. So they announced like an AI teammate that will sit in all your chats with you and will be able to pull up information, summarize information for you, and even sit on like meetings as well. And many of this wasn't released and just like demoed, but the demos were super cool as well. Google Photos also had investment in AI. So like from now, previously you'd be able to look for license plate or look for a cat. Now you can ask photos. This is a new feature where there's a conversational Gemini built into the Photos interface that understands the context between your photos, understands what's in them, and being able to pull up specific images throughout time as well. So stuff like, how does my daughter's like swimming progress look like, and will pull up the relevant pictures as well. Google on stage announced an incredible new generative video model called VO that creates 1080p videos from text prompts and images, and they have like cinematic effects and have editing capabilities. So basically Google's answer to Sora from OpenAI. We didn't get to test this one, unfortunately, but the folks who did test this one said that it looks pretty cool. Other notable announcements was Notebook LM, which is like an AI tool to organize and interact with a bunch of information. And they had Notebook LM for a while, but now it's conversational as well. So you'd be able to ask it to generate like a tutoring plan for you. And they even showcased a cool video where it talked in two voices and explained physics in basketball terms, which is super cool. They also had Project IDX, which is their IDE from Google that has Gemini built in as well. But I think the highlight, at least for me, the main highlight was, besides the caching, which is super cool, is Project Astra from DeepMind. Project Astra is basically the same thing that GPT-4o with multimodality was announced, where it's a agent or a conversational AI that you can talk to and can talk back in real time, and you can interact with it. You can interrupt it and ask it for some other stuff, and it has vision as well, so you can see what you're showing it. And if you guys remember, there was a video from Google a long time ago once they announced Gemini Ultra, where a person showing it like a rubber ducky and like a drawing or whatever, and it knows all these things. So that video was a fake, but basically they built it and now it's for real. And I got to test Project Astra in a booth multiple times. Actually came back and I asked it multiple things. It was very impressive how quick it responds. There was like a Pictionary demo that you can draw something, it responds to what you draw. And then there was like a bunch of toys that you can show it toys and ask it for a story that it uses the toys that I show it as it writes, as it tells the story. You can interrupt it and ask it for different things. The model itself is multimodal, but what we got is not yet multimodal as far as I heard from the folks who work on it. So it still uses text-to-speech and speech-to-text on the input and output, but it is very fast. It's very fast, fully conversational. You can talk to it. You can ask it to do stuff. I'm very excited about Project Astra. One other thing that they mentioned on stage in the video was glasses. So a person that was showing Project Astra, and this time they mentioned specifically, this video was taken in one shot with no cuts and no edits in real time. So they did address the fact that previously they screwed up with the marketing stuff. A person was walking around their lab and showing Project Astra like multiple things and asking about them by just pointing fingers, which is super cool. And at some point she put down the phone and picked up some glasses and then kept doing the same thing, showing things. And so basically Google showed us that they're working on multimodal AI augmented reality glasses that have subtitles in them, and this AI is built into the cameras of those glasses. And that was like incredibly cool. Everybody's, what? Did Google just resurrect Google Glass? Is this Google Glass 2.0? I asked a bunch of the Google execs that I got a chance to meet there. They didn't want to talk about this or share more details. This was like an early glimpse. But Project Astra is still in research phase. So while it's real, I played with it. It actually is real. It's not some bullshit. It's still in the early phase. And so it's unclear when we're going to see them. So I think this is like most of the recap of Google I/O specific for AI. There was a bunch of other stuff, AI everywhere pretty much, but this was like the main one. Google also released a bunch of open source. So in our corner of open source AI, we covered that they released Polygemma, which is a state-of-the-art small vision model. It's a 3 billion parameter vision model that runs almost on device and supports images up to 896 pixels, so almost 1080 by 1080 resolution, a little bit less. And it has document understanding, image detection, and also has segmentation. So you can prompt-based segmentation. You can ask it to segment stuff, whereas other models like Segment Anything from Meta, you had to do some work. This model has a LLM in it, so you can ask it to segment stuff, which is super cool. And there is like a whopping 160 checkpoints across like different libraries like JAX and PyTorch, so a bunch. So if you're into vision models, definitely check this out. Shout out to Google for open sourcing at least something during this. And also, famously, Google open sourced Gemma before, which is a 7 billion parameter model. There wasn't actually 7 billion. And now they talked about Gemma 2. So they didn't open source it yet, but Gemma 2 is coming later this month or next month. And it's a whopping 27 billion parameter model. But they claim that it's going to outperform models like two times as big. And they've trained this model specifically to be optimized to run on a single TPU or a GPU as well. So this is pretty much the Google I/O recap that we had. In other news, we also had Hermes 2 Theta. So the folks from News Research did a merge and collaborated together with the folks from RCAI, the folks behind MergeKit, and did a merge. And if you don't know what merges is, feel free to check out ThursdAI with Maxime Lebon to explain merges. But basically, it's a way to align layers and combine layers and do like a brain surgery on models. And this merge actually outperforms Llama Instruct. So they're merging Hermes Pro, which we've talked about, and Llama Instruct that came straight from Meta. And now this model is capable, very capable, but also outperforms Llama Instruct on most tasks as well, which is super cool. We also saw a bunch of releases from Yi, the Chinese lab, and their Apache 2 as well. So we got 3 models from Yi as well, Yi 1.5. And we also mentioned that there's a new benchmark called MMLU Pro, which tries to make MMLU a little bit harder to do, but also cheaper to run a little bit and a little bit more condensed. If you're into benchmarks and evaluations, please listen to that conversation as well. In this week's Buzz category, the weights and biases category that I talked about this week's Buzz, I mentioned that I spent, before Monday from OpenAI, I spent 2 days in a hackathon together with Meta folks. So shout out to Meta folks for joining forces with us to do the hackathon. Folks who hacked with Meta LLama-3 and Grok, and the Brave was there, and Weights and Biases obviously as well. And many people used our new solution called Weights and Biases Weave to actually track their LLMs. Actually, folk came up to me and asked me how to integrate this, and it took 3 minutes to integrate. And then they started seeing all the prompts and everything their model says in the Weave dashboard. And it's free for you to try, so you can also try it out. It's called WNB Weave, or DM me if you want to know more. And this whole hackathon was about offering those tools, and there were very cool projects happening all over the hackathon, and congratulations to the winners. The winner was an smart glasses hardware device, open source, for $20, which was super cool. That uses Llama and uses Grok as well for understanding. There was a debate project that you basically, for every moral conundrum you'll have multiple role-playing agents that will debate between themselves, and the moderator will give you the final answer. It was super cool as well. So a lot of projects. Shout out to the organizers, Cerebral Valley, for hosting us as well. And I will let you know when we have another one coming up soon. I think with Mistral in Paris. So if you're listening to this and you're in Europe, we're going to have another hackathon coming up very soon as well. In the video and vision category, we covered that Google also announced Veo, which is their video model answer to Sora, and that generates videos, 1080p videos, in fairly quick as well. It looks like it's quicker than Sora, with high cinematic value as well. And they collaborated with creators like Donald Glover or Childish Gambino on figuring out what to actually do with this technology, because neither OpenAI nor Google are releasing this tech. They first want to work with artists that actually will use this model. In the voice and audio category, we also talked about Google also they released a bunch of stuff. They released music VFX, which is you basically can generate music on the fly. And they had a demo booth, but also the guy on stage, Mark Rebele, or aka Loop Daddy, actually used the Google AI generated sounds at the opening of the show, which is really cool. And AI Art and Diffusion, we covered the newly released Imagen 3, which is a significant step up from previous Imagen models. I don't know if they're going to release this. I don't know if they released Imagen 2 before, but it looks very cool. And I think that's most of the updates. Oh, and last thing that we've talked about is that Cursor, the AI-fused clone of VS Code editor, trained a model that does 1,000 tokens per second on editing. It's called Speculative Edits, and Nista went into how they're doing this, and it looks super cool. So if you're using Cursor, you're probably about to get a very big update as well. And this is everything that we've talked about on May 16th on ThursdAI. We also showcase some demos as well. And I really want to thank everybody who joined week to week, especially shout out to Wolfram who joined. We had Robert Scoble here before, Ryan Carson from Intel, not IBM, from Intel. Nistan, thank you for joining. Justin, your first time here as well. Other folks who joined, thank you so much. Everybody who listens from week to week. If this is your first time joining us, this is the space that updates you with a lot of signal and hopefully not much noise about everything that happened in AI this week. I was struggling to figure out how I'm going to summarize the insanity of this week, but it looks like it went okay. So I'm definitely hoping for a chiller week next week, but I'm probably not going to have one because Microsoft Build conference is next week. I'm actually going to do the ThursdAI from a hotel in Seattle. So if you're in Seattle, please let me know. And if you're in Microsoft Build, let's meet up. Otherwise, I will let you go on the Thursday. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you here next week. Cheers, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.